It was a calm and peaceful evening for Bothem. After finishing his work, he headed home, took it easy for a bit, cooked and enjoyed his dinner. Once he tidied up, he looked forward to some relaxation. With about 10 minutes to spare before his favorite basketball team's game, he set up snacks and drinks, turning on the TV. Excitement filled the air as he dimmed the lights and settled in for the game. However, just as he was getting into it, a sudden realization struck him. He had forgotten to lock the door. Brushing it off, he assured himself he'd do it after the game. But as the game was about to start, something unbelievable happened. The front door opened, and a confused intruder entered the home. At 26, Bothem John wrapped up his day at the big accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and settled in to watch Thursday night NBA basketball. Bo, as he was fondly known, had a deep love for sports, but his true passion was singing. Originally from St. Lucia, born to parents Allison and Bothem, Bothem was the middle child in the family. He had a sister 10 years older and a baby brother 10 years younger. Described by his mother as the glue that held the family together, Bothem was compassionate, thoughtful, and accomplished. Back in St. Lucia, he ranked among the top students on the island, earning a spot in the best high school. His love for singing led him to form a school choir, and he graduated with an award for excelling not just in academics, but also in extracurriculars, known as the Spirit of St. Mary. Beyond being sharp-minded, Bothem was exceptionally kind-hearted, guided by his Christian faith. He was always looking for ways to help those in need. In St. Lucia, he befriended an elderly blind man, regularly visiting and singing to him. After high school, Bothem worked for a couple of years before pursuing his dream of attending university. Eager to study accounting, he chose Harding University in Arkansas, a Christian university that suited him well. Thriving at Harding, he became known for his kindness and compassion, leaving a lasting impression on his friends. Everyone knew Bothem. He had this natural way of making everyone feel at ease, truly standing out. After moving to the US, he played a central role in organizing a community assistance group. They would go out in the neighborhood, lending a hand wherever needed, cleaning up yards, helping with moves, and fostering positive connections within the community. As he assisted people, he often shared his joy through singing. Upon graduating, Bothem started his career in Dallas. On the 6th of September, he was just chilling at home in the Southside Flats apartment complex. He texted friends some silly memes, reminiscing about good times, and enjoyed a bowl of ice cream. Then, around 10 p.m., his apartment door opened, and moments later, he was struck in the chest by a 9mm bullet. That single shot would take Bothem John's life. The story kicks off with what initially looks like a terrible mistake. A series of unfortunate events leading to the death of a promising person who was just starting their life. However, as the trial unfolds, the tragic incident takes on a different angle. It turns out that a split-second decision to shoot and kill made by Officer Amber Geiger from the Dallas Police Department changed everything. The initial sentence, seen as mild and easygoing, sent the community into peril and quickly took it on the streets to protest for justice. On top of that, social media posts, text messages, and a testimony from a neighbor raised questions among the judges, especially after this witness went silent after testifying. It was a little past 10 p.m. on September 6, 2018, a Thursday night. Officer Geiger, after finishing her shift, was heading home. She parks her white pickup truck at the Southside Flats apartment complex, where she had been living for less than 2 months. Now, here's a habit she picked up from her police training. She backs her truck into the parking space. It's one of those things that helps her be ready to drive out quickly if needed. By that time, Amber had 5 years of experience as a police officer under her belt. She was assigned to the Southeast Division and it was said to be the place where one could encounter a variety of crimes, staying busy and never getting bored. But before that, she had a training process that had 3 phases, each lasting 6 weeks. During the first 2 phases, she rode with a trainer, learning the ropes of the job. After completing this initial training, there was further instruction. This time, she rode with a more experienced officer known as a T partner. Once this phase was over, she became a regular patrol officer. In this role, her duties included various tasks related to maintaining public safety and order. On that Thursday night, after more than 13 hours on duty, Officer Amber Geiger was coming home. It was one of many long days that week, working extra hours for overtime pay. Carrying a load of police gear and bags, she walked towards her apartment door. Although she had just left work and her police station was nearby, she kept her uniform on and had all her gear on her left side, a habit from police training to keep her strong side ready for quick access to her holsters. As she headed down 2 corridors toward her front door, she noticed something strange. The door was slightly open, and she thought she heard a shuffling noise inside. Juggling her equipment, she used her key fob to open the door, applying enough pressure. What happened next remains uncertain. Did someone inside call out to her, or did they move towards her? What is clear is that Amber reacted by firing her weapon twice. Moments later, she turned on the lights and looked around. Everything seemed unfamiliar. The couch, the TV set, and everything else, except for the layout of the unit. It dawned on her that she was in the wrong apartment, standing 1 floor above her own home. At her feet lay a man she didn't know. In a state of confusion, Amber called 911.
Get up, man.
Dallas 911, this is Carla. Where's your emergency?
Hi, this is off-duty officer. I need EMS. I'm in number.
What's going on?
I'm an off-duty officer. I thought it was in my apartment, and I shot a guy thinking it was my apartment.
Throughout the call, Amber emphasizes 20 times that she believed she was entering her own apartment. Twice, she mentions feeling very tired, and she apologizes to the man she shot. She also expresses concern that the incident might cost her job. Despite the Southside Flats apartment complex's proximity to the police station, the police respond remarkably quickly, arriving at the address within 2 minutes. Previous to this incident, Amber had a clean record and no suspicious behavior. But one uneasy question keeps lingering. Did she really just wander into the wrong apartment? Or is there something more to it? Something more sinister? What might serve as an indicator to something more sinister, and whether or not there was something foul here, it's unclear if Amber attempted CPR or tried to stop the bleeding. By the time the officers reach the 4th floor, she is waiting outside the wrong apartment. In the body camera footage from Officer Michael Lee, Amber is briefly seen guiding the police to the correct apartment. She mentions being off duty, reporting the shooting, and reiterates her belief that the apartment was hers. Amber stood on the balcony outside the apartments, watching but mostly staying out of the way as emergency medical technicians rushed to help the man she had accidentally shot in his home. Eventually, she found a seat inside a police cruiser, putting her head down while emergency efforts continued. It seemed like she was texting on her phone. While this was happening, medical personnel hurried past, and a sergeant leaned in to instruct another officer to turn off the dash camera in the cruiser. The reason he gave was that Amber needed to call her lawyer. Recognizing the sensitivity of the situation involving one of their own, the Dallas Police Department wisely stepped aside. The case was handed over to the Texas Rangers. These investigators sat down with Amber Geiger the next day, on the 7th of September 2018. During the initial interview, a significant topic was Amber's schedule and sleeping habits. She worked 6 days a week, Monday to Friday, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. as a police officer. Additionally, every Saturday she had another shift from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at a Baptist church. Her typical day started around 5:30 a.m., included overtime, a gym trip, and ended with about 5 hours of sleep, claiming she had very little rest the night before the shooting. 2 days after the interview, an arrest warrant was issued, charging Amber with second-degree manslaughter. She was put on paid leave for 18 days, but public pressure through protests and demonstrations outside police headquarters led to her termination. But why would the community not believe in a simple mistake? Or is there something more to it? Later that month, a grand jury indicted her for the more serious charge of murder. If you are as intrigued about crime stories as us and you enjoy our videos, consider subscribing. In Texas, there's no first-degree designation, but a murder conviction requires proving malice. This means the state believed they could demonstrate that Amber not only acted recklessly, but with an intent to kill. When the trial began, the prosecution focused on establishing this intent. The shooting involved 2 shots fired in rapid succession, known as a double tap in law enforcement. The intention behind this technique is to increase the likelihood of hitting and fatally wounding the target. The fatal bullet struck Bothem through the heart, while the second missed and was found lodged in the apartment wall with an upward trajectory. State prosecutors argued that the gunshot path suggested Amber aimed for a headshot, but it likely missed because Bothem was possibly in motion, perhaps standing up from the couch. This theory aligns with the fact that Bothem was getting up from a seated position, facing the door as Amber entered his home. Another reasonable explanation could be that he was cowering behind a low wall a few feet in front of him, separating him from the shooter. In contrast, Amber's defense labeled the incident a tragic accident, emphasizing innocent circumstances colliding in the wrong way. They urged against rushing to judgment, asserting that Amber reasonably believed she was in her own apartment, confronting an intruder. According to her defense, she firmly believed she had no choice but to use her gun to prevent harm. A central question emerged. Was it reasonable for Amber to think she was entering her own home? In Texas in 2019, the Castle Doctrine, a debated law, allowed homeowners to protect themselves from intruders. The law had an exception for a mistake of fact, meaning a reasonable mistake in a particular situation could be accepted as fact. If proven that Amber had reason to believe she was in her own home, she could be justified under the law. However, accepting this argument could distort the law's actual purpose, potentially justifying an intruder shooting a homeowner. The key question was whether it was reasonable for Amber to believe she was entering her own home. Prosecutors pointed out the noticeable difference in elevation from the 4th floor where she was to the 3rd floor where she lived. This elevation change should have been apparent during her daily walks to and from her truck in the open-air garage, providing a 180-degree view of the apartment complex's roofline. To reach her apartment, Amber had to walk down 2 hallways, a journey estimated to take about 1.5 to 2 minutes for a young and fit person carrying gear like her. Along this path, she passed 16 apartment doors, each marked with a lit unit number starting with a 4 for the 4th floor. Despite this, it's argued that if Amber wasn't paying attention, she might have missed details like differences in floor mats and decorative elements, such as a distinct large urn outside one neighbor's door, absent on the 4th floor. Crucially, Bothem Jean made his apartment stand out with a bright red floor mat right in front of his door. Amber, however, had no floor mat, and she walked right up and stepped on Bothem's. So, was this all a simple misunderstanding, or is there more behind the shooting? The defense highlighted that confusion in the standardized hallway design was common, with 71 out of 297 residents admitting to accidentally entering the wrong apartment on the 3rd or 4th floors. But when state prosecutors asked if any of these residents had then shot at the people inside, the answer was a resounding no. Issues with key fobs were acknowledged, with Amber reporting previous access problems. Neighbors confirmed misaligned and defective locks, requiring jiggling and inconsistent responses to fobs. This suggested that Amber's ease of access into Bothem's apartment, with a slightly ajar door, wouldn't have seemed unusual to her. Many people, including protesters, the media, and the public, wondered how a trained police officer like Amber could miss so many signs that night. Her defense argued that it was likely due to exhaustion, with Amber operating on autopilot after numerous overtime hours and a 13-hour shift. Prosecutors presented a different theory. Phone records revealed that Amber was on the phone with her colleague and romantic partner, Martin Rivera, that night. Text messages suggested they might have been planning to meet up. Despite claims of exhaustion, racy texts were exchanged right up to the moment she reached Bothem's apartment door. 2 more texts were sent while Botham was on the ground struggling to breathe, raising the question one more time if she went to help the victim or not. The jury also saw social media posts that painted Amber in an unfavorable light. However, a conflicting story came from a neighbor, Joshua Brown, who returned home just as Amber entered Botham's apartment. According to Joshua, he heard the two encountering each other and then immediately heard gunshots. Notably, he did not hear Amber give any warning or instruct Botham to raise his hands. Joshua, who had met Botham only once, broke down in tears during his testimony, mentioning how he used to hear Botham singing gospel music every morning. Unfortunately, 10 days after testifying, Joshua was shot to death in the parking lot of his new apartment complex, 3 months after Botham's death. The timing fueled rumors of a conspiracy, suggesting his role in the trial made him a target. However, police denied all accusations, noting that if a witness were to be killed to prevent testimony, it would usually happen before, not after they had given it. In December, 3 men that Joshua knew personally were charged with his murder, suggesting a possible robbery attempt. Meanwhile, prosecutors argued that Amber made the decision to shoot the perceived intruder in the apartment the moment she heard shuffling noises, even before opening the door. During Amber's trial, when she took the stand, she insisted that she did, in fact, call out to Botham to raise his hands multiple times and loudly before firing her weapon. This directly contradicted Joshua's earlier testimony, adding another layer of complexity to the events surrounding Botham Jean's tragic death. As the trial reached its conclusion, the nation watched closely, with ongoing protests and media speculation. In a notable incident, the district attorney gave an interview to the news media, violating the judge's instructions, drawing disapproval. The jury deliberated for about 5 hours, dismissing the lesser charge of manslaughter and rejecting Amber's self-defense claim. She was found guilty of murder with malice, as she admitted on the stand that she intended to kill. During the sentencing phase, the jury, within 5 minutes, agreed on the murder conviction, but struggled more with determining the sentence. 2 jurors shared that Amber's affair, text messages, and social media posts had little impact on their decision. They believed the prosecution's assertion that she intended to kill before fully entering the door. The prosecution suggested a 28-year sentence, tying it to Botham's age at what would have been his 28th birthday. During the sentencing, those close to Botham shared heartfelt memories, highlighting his impact on others and his belief in the importance of helping people. Jurors, despite the possibility of a 99-year sentence and the proposed 28 years, decided on a 10-year sentence for Amber, including some time served. They considered Botham's forgiving nature, believing that he would have forgiven Amber had he survived. This decision was later validated when Botham's brother, after the verdict, embraced Amber in a powerful act of forgiveness.